Yeah, what's up? It's Chris, and we're gonna do something I've never done before. We're gonna do like a morning news, but with par and hash. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read an article, and yeah, I am gonna treat you all like young folks, and I'm gonna read out loud to you. I can't stand when people read out loud to me, but I'm gonna read this article, and it's about Mike Pence and his opinion on critical race theory. If you are unfamiliar with either Mike Pence, he's the former vice president under Donald Trump, and I believe he was a governor out in like Indiana or something like that. But a very conservative, religious, some people would say anti-gay, anti-queer person. Some people would say racist. I don't really know a whole lot about Mike Pence. During the presidency, I know that he supported Trump most of the time. At certain points, he didn't, like in the Capitol insurrection, but he also kind of stayed silent on some of the ridiculousness that Trump was pushing. I do know that during the debate, a fly landed on his head and he was unmoved by it, which showed some level of just like metaphor for how in society, some people were like, well, you know what flies like, and they were being really mean about it. It was also funny. Twitter was off the hook, like literally within 3 seconds of the fly being stuck on his head, everybody had the memes popping. It was one of the best things I'd seen on the internet in terms of immediate response to a phenomena. And if you don't understand or aren't familiar with critical race theory, there are a number of professors, schools of thought, historians, and people that discuss critical race theory. So I'm not going to try to define it for you. I would suggest that you research it. I would suggest that you do not just read Wikipedia. When we talk about blackness, do not learn about blackness from non-black people first, okay? And because I'm black, you can believe me. No, I'm kidding. Don't even believe me as a black person. Keep in mind that blackness is not monolithic and that there is no one definition for almost anything that's not totally quantitative. And the understanding of critical race theory is not quantitative. All right, so we're going to start it. And I find the article, the headline, I'm reading from Fox News. And you might be like, why the hell are you reading from Fox News? It's because Melissa's mom sent me this article talking about, like, why is Mike Pence even discussing critical race theory? So we'll go through it. In Manchester, New Hampshire, during a trip that sparked more speculation that he'll run for president in 2024, former Vice President Mike Pence dived directly into the latest battleground in a nation's culture wars, taking direct aim at critical race theory, and declared that America is not a racist nation. Headlining a Republican County fundraising dinner on Thursday night in New Hampshire, the state that for a century has held the first primary in the presidential nominating calendar, Pence also shared that he and former President Trump have spoken many times since the end of the administration in January. So one thing I want to ask, why the hell is New Hampshire involved in deciding who's ever going to be the president? You know how many people live in that state? Now, I'm not reading from you'll be able to tell when I'm reading and then when I'm talking. How many people live in New Hampshire? How come the presidential race is kicked off in New Hampshire, Iowa, and these places where there are like no black people? I mean, there are black people down in South Carolina, but these are also states with how much of a population? And so the fact that if you want to run for president, you have to convince people in these very small, secluded areas that you're a legitimate candidate, very interesting. Also, New Hampshire recently was site of a Memorial Day speech, and in the speech, a former military person was going to include how black people were pretty heavily involved in the establishment of Memorial Day, and they cut his sound. Like the people running it went to the sound person and were like, cut his sound, he's talking about black people. And the sound person was like, no, you all can do it, and they did. But anyway, so New Hampshire's not high on my list right now for like being the center point for cultural understanding. But anyway, back to the report. The former vice president acknowledged that he and his former boss, Trump, still don't see eye to eye about the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol by right-wing extremists and other supporters of the then-president who aim to disrupt congressional certification of now President Biden's electoral college victory. Remember, there's some people that still say Trump won. Pence also used his speech to blast Biden for failed leadership and accused the Biden administration of incompetence, saying, I don't think the left hand knows what the far left hand is doing. Now, if people think that Biden is being pushed by the far left, I'm confused. And we're living in a bizarro world when centrism is being confused as far leftism. But that's a whole nother kind of discussion. Pence spoke out against critical race theory, which aims to combat racism by emphasizing that systemic racism is a part of American society, and it takes aim at the beliefs that allow the nation to exist. Wait, what? Like, is Fox News defining critical race theory? That part of what it does is take aim at the beliefs that allow the nation to exist? No, it doesn't. It calls out systemic and historical racism. That this country was founded on racism. Like literally in the Constitution, it says that people of African descent are 3/5 of a person to be counted for tax purposes. How isn't race then involved in establishing our country? Literally the economic underpinning of certain parts of the country built on racism, built on exclusion. But we'll get to that later. Back to the report. It's become the latest cultural flashpoint as Republican executives and lawmakers across the country move to prevent it from being taught in schools. At least 5 GOP-controlled state legislatures have passed bans on critical race theory or related topics in recent months, and conservatives in at least 9 other states are pressing for similar measures. Now, keep in mind, creationism is still taught. Even if it's taught as, here's something people believe in, it may or may not be true. You should be aware of it because it influences other humans in your community. That can be taught. Creationism. Okay, God made everything, and on the 7th day had to rest because he was tired. That gets taught, but critical race theory can't be taught in school because it what? All right, that's it. So we go back to the report. So quoting Pence, one of the most disturbing developments of the past few months has been the Biden administration's wholehearted embrace of the radical left's all-encompassing assault on American culture and values. Pence said, under the Biden administration, patriotic education has been replaced with political indoctrination. What do you think patriotic education is? That is political indoctrination. And the radical left, I wish the radical left was in office. I wish the radical left had influence over Biden. Biden is not radical left. Biden's not saying legalize all drugs. Biden is not saying defund the police. Biden isn't saying stop all military action around the world and try to be a peaceful nation, destroy our nuclear weapons cache. Biden is not far left. That man won't say give free healthcare to everybody. Like, don't pay into it at all. Like, everyone gets the free healthcare if they want. Anyway, quote Pence, it is time for America to discard the left-wing myth of systemic racism once and for all. America is not a racist nation, Pence declared, which drew one of nearly a dozen standing ovations from the conservative crowd at the Hillsborough County GOP's annual Lincoln Reagan Awards dinner and fundraiser. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if you can't discuss systemic racism or you don't admit that that is a part of the American fabric, we're going to have a problem. Because literally, if you go through history, what is Plessy versus Ferguson? What is the Dred Scott case? What are all these historic and clearly, like if you look at who is the greatest Supreme Court justice, he was a racist and he did not want black people to be free. And so if we don't think that systemic racism is a part of American history, that's wild. And if we think that critical race theory is trying to undermine what America is, it's actually trying to make up for the whitewashing and the falsehood in the American narrative and to make up for totally politically charged and motivated falsehoods in our understanding of history, our understanding of medicine, our understanding of economics, our understanding of finance, our understanding of policing and everything. Okay, the former vice president also used this speech to deliver his most extensive comments to date about the deadly insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Pence, who along with members of Congress was forced to move to secure rooms while the Capitol was stormed, called the attack a dark and tragic day in American history. The same day we reconvened the Congress and did our duty under the Constitution and laws of the United States. That's right, Congress was supposed to verify that Biden won and that the Electoral College works. Yes, that's right, democracy. Pointing out his relationship with Trump, Pence shared that I don't know if we'll ever see eye to eye about that day. That's because Trump thinks it's okay that Bama stormed the Capitol, which is wild. Imagine if a whole bunch of black people tried to storm the Capitol. You know how many people would have got shot before they even got to the Capitol? Like, as soon as they pulled up, like a block away, you know what would have happened? Shootings of the black people by the police. The snipers didn't. You know how many snipers? I grew up in D.C. You can see the snipers on the White House and on the Capitol grounds from I don't know how far away, but nobody got shot. And I talked to someone who's like, well, no one would have guessed these white people were going to do that. They said they were going to do it. Literally, they said, we are going to go and take over. And no one was prepared for it. No one would have guessed that white people can act crazy with their guns and try to, okay. I'm going to just let it ride. We know what happened out in the federal grounds in Oregon when the Bamas took up. Remember Ruby Ridge? Remember Waco? Remember? It took over 50 or something days for that Waco shit to go down. You know what would happen if it was a whole bunch of black people that started shooting at the cops? Anyway, we know what happened. The MOVE organization in Philadelphia. We know what happened. What happened to Breonna Taylor? Anyway. So Pence says he doesn't know if he'll see eye to eye with Trump. But he quickly added that I will always be proud of what we accomplished for the American people over the last 4 years, which was met with loud applause by the audience. So Trump and Pence are still holding it down like they did a good job the past 4 years. And alluding to the unsuccessful push by congressional Democrats to pass legislation setting up a January 6th commission to investigate the insurrection, which was thwarted by GOP leadership in the Senate, Pence said, "I will not allow the Democrats and their allies in the media to use one tragic day to discredit the aspirations of millions of Americans." Wait, what? Because we want a commission, not we, I don't give a fuck, I already know about the fuckery. Because there's a commission possibly to investigate January 6th, that would undermine and discredit the aspirations of millions of Americans? What? What? Actually, that upholds liberty in the sense of when shit goes haywire, don't they form commissions? Then they form a commission on who knows what in the past 10 years to try to do nonpartisan understanding. But the Republicans blocked it. Now, normally the Republicans are like, you can waterboard people to get information. You can drone strike motherfuckers to get information. You can bring justice to whoever without a court of law. You can run up in somebody's house with a no-knock warrant, dressed like regular people, kill them when they try to protect themselves, but we can't form a commission to understand what happened January 6th because it might call out maybe some possible collusion when it comes to the police, when it comes to Capitol Police, when it comes to military law enforcement, and these folks who are not hillbillies. People think all the folks that raided the Capitol on January 6th are these redneck white people. Bama's took private jets to get there. One of the dudes in the picture sitting there with the crazy outfit on, not just him. There's a dude whose dad is a judge in New York City, and who comes from a very wealthy and educated family, who went to private and Ivy League schools. So let's not trip about what's going on and what happened on January 6th. All right. Now, Pence gave the sold-out audience of more than 360 people plenty of red meat. 360 people. We throw shows with more people than 360 people. You're a former vice president. I'm supposed to be excited you got 300 people there? Anyway, claiming that after 134 days where the Biden administration and Democrats in Washington have been pushing open borders, higher taxes, runaway spending, more government, defunding the police, abandoning the right to life, censoring free speech, canceling our most cherished liberties, I came here to say enough is enough. I came here to say the time is now for every patriotic American who shares our ideals and values to stand up and fight back against the agenda of the radical left. First of all, the radical left is not in power. The radical left is, you see this shirt? This is Mandela's shirt. It's talking about spread love. It don't take nothing to share a little bit of love. That's radical left. It's talking about spreading love. It's me saying war should not happen. It's me saying stop killing black folks. It's me saying that capitalism ruins more people's lives than it benefits. That's radical left. Radical left is saying you got to be anti-military. You got to be anti-police state. You got to rethink our economic positioning. That's radical left. Biden doesn't listen to radical lefts. Biden hasn't taken on the gun companies. Radical left says we don't need these guns, especially in the hands of police. Radical left says stop the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex. People in Congress and the Senate don't even get to speak to folks that are radical left. So when Pence says the Democrats need to stop the radical left, what are they talking about? In terms of open borders, yeah, maybe we shouldn't keep kids in cages. Maybe we shouldn't have to wait for someone to be a citizen in order to be treated like a human, all right? When runaway spending, what government did, what? More government, the largest government entity in America is Homeland Security. So any of the Republicans or any of the conservatives or any of the people that want to go for smaller government, disband the military. Disband all these police officers. You know how much money goes into all that stuff? Anyway, and Biden is not here to defund or get rid of the police. He said numerous times that he won't. As a matter of fact, after the insurrection in the Capitol, he's going to give over $1 billion to train more officers. What other people besides meteorologists get to do their job so wrong and still keep it and get paid more money? So the Bamas who work in the military, the National Guard, Capitol Police, and local police did a horrible job on January 6th. Yet, as an institution, they're going to get over $1 billion more. And Pence is saying that Biden wants to defund the police. So that lets you know where we are in the American zeitgeist. That is bizarro world. All right. When one politician who's on the right says the left wants to defund the police and the left are giving the police billions of dollars. How is that defunding them? And abandoning the right to life? Look, trying to control women's bodies, that's a conversation for women. I'm not going to get into it. But Pence, you sound nuts. All right. You talk about right to life, but you okay with killing people if they've committed a certain crime. Like capital punishment is okay, but we're not worried about life once humans are alive. Okay, censoring free speech. Who's censoring free speech? But I'm going to say all types of... Someone right now can draw a swastika on the ground out in front of the White House, and apparently that's free speech. But a black person, if they say certain things, all of a sudden gets police at their house or gets some FBI in their crib. Anyway, our cherished liberties, and me being a patriot is me saying that white folks need to stop killing black folks, all right? Me being a patriot says that as a black person in America and being part of the foundation of this country, that we should have equal treatment under the law. And that when the police violate their responsibility, they should be held accountable. Just like if as a citizen I violate my responsibility and I hurt somebody, I'm held accountable, all right? All right, so let's go on. And of course, the media. And I'm reading this on Fox News, so keep that in mind. Pence told the crowd that one of the reasons he came was to bash the current administration. Well, that's cool. I don't mind that. He charged that we need to defend the police and reject the anti-law enforcement agenda of Joe Biden and the Democrats in Washington. Like I said, they're giving them more money. I'm here to bash the police and to say that the police need to not do all the things that they are in charge of doing right now. There need to be other people you can call because the police don't know how to handle it. If you have I don't want to take on somebody. If they got a knife and they waving it in public, call the police. They got guns, they can handle it. But I saw someone's car get broken into. Why do I need to call the police? Call somebody else who isn't going to show up looking to hunt for somebody. The police are made to hunt and track down people, and that's horrible. It's oppressive, and state-sponsored violence is such a problem here, and paramilitary policing is such a problem here. All right. Andy accused Biden of not living up to his pledges during last year's campaign to seek bipartisanship. In 2020, Joe Biden campaigned as a moderate. When he campaigned, but he literally governed as the most liberal president since FDR. Even AOC said the President Biden exceeded progressives' expectations. That's saying a lot. What? You think Biden is more liberal than what? FDR? This is nonsense. And of course he exceeded the expectations of progressives because he was such a centrist. The fact that he has kind of pushed for certain things that help poor people, that help folks that are workers, that helped the proletariat, that's leftist? Anyway. Pence praised the move by a number of GOP-controlled states, including key battlegrounds of Florida, Georgia, and Arizona, controlled states to pass laws tightening voting access rules, which have sparked an outcry by Democrats. You mean they're limiting voting rights? You mean in Georgia, Florida, and Arizona, they're trying to stop people from voting, which is, again, our constitutional right is to vote. So when Pence says be a patriot, in my mind, it's me saying we should fight against these legislators in these states who want to limit access to voting, who want to stop people that made bad decisions or who got caught up on whatever and are felons. They should be able to vote still. There are all these things that, basically the equivalent of poll taxes, the equivalent of making people do tests that they know how to read in order to vote, that limited people from voting. We need to get more people voting so that we have a more representative democratic government, which is patriotic to ask for, okay? It's time we recognize that election integrity is a national imperative, but a state responsibility, Pence said in another standing ovation. After an election that saw several states around the country literally set aside election laws enacted by state legislatures, now is the time for states to ensure one person, one vote. Yeah, we know that both Republicans and Democrats fudge that. The Republican push in the states has spurred a move by congressional Democrats to pass a wide-ranging election and campaign finance reform bill that would stem the GOP moves and increase federal oversight over state elections. Pence vowed to fight against the push to nationalize our elections. Oh, we don't want campaign finance reform, do we? Of course we do. The former vice president was introduced by a close friend and ally, Republican Governor Chris Sununu of New Hampshire. His first and foremost, my friend Sununu said of Pence, he's just a good guy. His heart is absolutely in the right place. Do I believe that? Pence's trip to New Hampshire is sparking more speculation that he'll seek the GOP presidential nomination in 2024. It's the former vice president's second stop this year in one of the early voting primary states. Pence in April traveled to South Carolina, which holds the first Southern contest and votes right after New Hampshire in the Republican nominating calendar, to give his first post-Trump presidency address. All right, so that's the recap. I just went through. So I just want to let people know that in my mind, I don't know what Biden's done at all. So I'm not even a Democrat. I don't support what Biden's doing. I'm not hype about Biden. But anyone trying to say that he is a centrist, bleh, to me, he's like Republican light. He's not doing, and he's definitely not extremist far left. If anyone wants to say that the Democratic Party is being run by far left people and the radical left, come see the radical left. Come hang out with me. Come talk to me about military. Come talk to me about budgetary discretion. Come talk to me about campaign refinance. Come talk to me about term limits. Come talk to me about how to treat young people and old people, how to deal with historically marginalized groups and classes of people. All right, definitely come talk to me if you want to deal with critical race theory and how this country is not even implementing that in schools. What they're doing is trying to start teaching it as a theory. Did you hear that? Critical race theory. It's a theory, an idea. It's something that gets into the history of ideology and American consciousness. So the other part I want to say is, why the hell is Mike Pence talking about critical race theory? He doesn't know what it is. I guarantee if I were to sit down with Mike Pence and be like, give me a breakdown of critical race theory and the history of its development. Who came up with it? In which way has it been implemented? What are the objections and what are the supporting points? I guarantee Mike Pence has no idea. I would bet the amount of money I have in crypto. See, I do that. I would bet the amount of money I have in crypto that if I sat down with a 15-minute conversation with Mike Pence, he could not go more than 3 to 5 minutes talking about critical race theory without extrapolating and it going into some hubbaloo that isn't true and it isn't actually rooted in how the theory was developed, how it's been implemented, and why it means something of importance to folks that are black. All right. So that's that. This is my first day doing this. I'm going to try to find more articles to read and to give my assessment of and to talk about. If you have any thoughts, any opinions, please comment. If there are things I didn't go deep enough into, send me a note. We'll talk about it. But the first thing is like asking Mike Pence about critical race theory is like asking me about astrophysics. You notice I never have discussions about astrophysics. I never am arguing about what Neil deGrasse Tyson said or Carl Sagan or anybody. You know why? Because I don't know anything about astrophysics. When's the last time you heard me argue about quantum theory versus Newtonian theory? You notice I don't do that because I don't know anything about it. So why is Mike Pence talking about critical race theory? And to any of the people out there that are libertarian or Republican and you think the Democratic Party has gone far left, it hasn't. Come in my living room. I am far left. All right, and we can talk about it. I'm right at the edge because the radical thought would be burn it all down, like literally burn down the buildings, fire everybody, start over. I'm not quite there yet. All right, but I'm definitely not in the centrist. I'm not with this fake Republican light. I'm not with the libertarians who just don't want to admit they're Republican. I'm with the like, oh, you want to make the government small? Get rid of Homeland Security. Get rid of TSA. Get rid of all these intrusive paramilitaristic entities. That's how you make the government smaller. What's the military doing all around the world? Enforcing our commercial interests or keeping us free? All right? You want to make the government smaller? What are we doing with the prison industrial complex? Why don't we make that smaller? Why don't we do judicial reform? Why don't we get some of these people out of office in Congress and in the Senate who've been there too long? So if you want to talk about radical left, I got some radical left theory for you. Now, until then, I just want to say peace, love. I'm about to go to a mineral and crystal show up here in Orange County. I'm in Westchester now, but I'm going to go to this mineral show in Orange County and spend some time outside. You can see the little doggies out here. One of those is Roscoe. One of them is Rufus. And my way of being far left and radical is to say spread love. It don't take nothing to share a little bit of love. And I'm wearing a T-shirt from the homie Mandela Esquia. Look up the homie. I also want to give a shout out to my homie Zach Murdoch. We just released he released a project called Ragdoll, and it features The Things and Justice and a bunch of my homies that are out in California. They're recording in the Skipper Room. I'm featured on the opening song, Reimagine Eden. And think about that. What does revolution look like internally for you? Revolution in the mind, all right? And to spread love. I'm going to check in. Peace.